All right, so we're going to look at today the circle of fifths. The circle of fifths seems to be either a mystery for people or it's their best friend. And what is the circle of fifths? The circle of fifths is just a very simple way of seeing and demonstrating how many sharps or flats are in a key. So if I have my circle here, my perfectly executed circle, at the top of the circle, you're going to have a C. And that's representing the key of C, or the C major scale. Because this is called the circle of fifths, if I go to this side over here, going this way, my next note would be a G. And the reason why that is if I look at like my musical alphabet, for instance, A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. If that's my musical alphabet, if I counted from C, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, G is 5 notes away from C. So it would be next in my circle of fifths. And now if I go from 5 from G, I would then have D. And then 5 from D, I would have A, I would have E, and I would have B. So right there, I have the start of my circle of fifths. Pretty simple so far. What this is telling me, though, is that here in the key of C, we have 0, that is no sharps or flats. In the key of G, we have 1 sharp. That's not a hashtag. That's a sharp. Okay, then if I have 1 sharp in the key of G, I have 2 in the key of D, 3 in A, E, F. E is 4, and B is 5. So on this side over here, I have my sharps. Over here on this side, I'm going to have my flats. Now this is where we want to make a distinction. Going over here to this clockwise, it's fifths, and so it's called the circle of fifths. And if I keep going all the way through the pattern, my notes would turn out to be the exact same. But just for ease of showing this or demonstrating this, we're going to go the other way now and filling out this counterclockwise way. And this is oftentimes referred to as a cycle of fourths. Again, it's the same thing as the circle of fifths, except for just going in this other direction now. So instead of moving in the direction of an interval of a fifth, we're now going to move in the direction of the interval this way of a fourth. So if we think about this, here's my musical alphabet, and I want to go in fourths, and I go from C, C is 1, 2, 3, 4. F would be my next one. And if I keep going, next would be B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, and then I would come over here and I would have right here in this middle, and I know that my circle's a little bit off with these letters, but I would have G flat, which is also the same thing, or in harmonic to that is my F sharp. So what I have here is that if I wanted to know how many flats were in the key of F, I'll look at my circle of fifths. It tells me there's 1 flat, 2 flats in the key of B flat, 3. Now, why this is important? Well, let's just say if I'm looking at a piece of music, happen to have one here, and I look right here at the beginning, and it says there's 2 sharps, and I wonder what key this song is in. Well, I just come over here, 2 sharps, it tells me the song is in the key of D. And I come over, let's say, to this one. Oh, this one looks kind of tricky. We've got 5 flats. What key is that in? Well, I just go to my flat side, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it tells me there's 5 flats in there. So that tells me that that song is in the key of D flat. Okay, so that's one use for the circle of fifths, is it can tell me how many flats or sharps are in a key, but are there any other things that make this useful to me? Absolutely. You know, for instance, if I was in the key of C and I wanted to know what my main chords were in the key of C, well, C, F is my 4, G is my 5, so the main chords in the key of C would be that. C, F, G. And I can take that all the way through. If I'm in the key of G, G is my 1 chord, C 4 chord, and D 5 chord. And you can see how you can figure out the major chords in each one of those keys. One last other little thing here to note about this circle of fifths is just simply this, is that how do I know what the sharp is? Well, if I go a half step before G, it would be F sharp. So the sharp that I have is the F sharp. You know, if I go to the key of D, I'm going to bring the F sharp with me. So it's like you carry it over there, and then you go, what's a half step before D? Well, it's C sharp. You do that for every key. So what would be a half step before A? Well, that's G sharp. And I have F sharp, C sharp in there. And that is my pattern. And that's just how it happens to work for figuring out these scales. The reason it works out this way is because of the nature of what a scale is. Let's say if I have a C major scale, we see that there's 0 sharps or flats, so I got C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. You can kind of think of it as playing all of the white keys on the piano. And there would be this natural half step there between E and F and B and C. So I have a half step pattern between 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, so to make a major scale, that's my pattern. Between the 3rd and 4th notes, there's a half step. Oh, and I wrote 5 and 6. Whoops, 7 and 8. Rookie mistake. So 7 and 8 over here is my half step pattern between the major scale. So 3, 4, 7, 8. That's what makes it a major scale. Now, so if I take the G scale, let's say if I take G, so I got G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I just walk through this. Well, G to A is a whole step, A to B is a whole step, B to C half step. Good, we're good. C to D is a whole step, D to E is a whole step, E to F half step. So something's wrong there. I've got to do something. Well, what I do, I've got to make this a whole step and this a half step. So I add the sharp here. And now F sharp to G puts my half step at 7 and 8. So how many sharps do I have there in the key of G? Got 1 sharp. And if we went through to every key, we would just see this pattern work itself out, where we would have 2 sharps in D, 3 in A, 4 in E, 5 in B, and then 6 in F sharp. And going through the flats, it works in the same way, where we're going to have that same pattern, but it's not as easy to figure out. But here's the trick here, is if I'm looking at the key of F, the key after F is the B flat. That's the key, that's the flat that's going to actually be in the key of F. And then if I go to the key of B flat, it's got 2 flats. Well, it's going to be B flat is one of them, and then E flat. E flat is going to be 1, B flat's going to be 1, A flat's going to be 1. So you can just keep on going through to see the addition of the flats and how that's going to work on the flat side. Now, beyond just knowing how this works and how it can tell us how many keys in, also telling us this is also a really good way to practice, whatever your instrument is, to go through and practice. And I like to actually go in the fourths, just because it's harder for me to think that way. But let's say if I wanted to work on my scales, well, I'm going to practice my major scale in C, then F, then B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat. And this is just a really systematized way of making sure that I'm practicing everything that I can practice in terms of my instrument. I can practice all of my major scales, go through all of my different keys, making sure that I'm comfortable with each one of the keys that are available to me. So that's the circle of fifths. That's how I use the circle of fifths, is for my practicing. At this point in the game, I don't really need it to figure out how many or what key I'm in by the sharps. I just kind of know it, but I still use the circle of fifths to practice my scales, practice my chords, practice phrases in different keys. And so it's a very helpful tool that never gets old, regardless of where you're at in your musicianship. I hope that's helpful, and if it is, please hit that subscribe button. Thanks.